That's chilling. The voice recorder, the hidden brick, and the tapes tied to that unexplained 3-hour gap when you were 7. It's like a puzzle with pieces that don't quite fit. The fact that the voice isn't yours, but knows things you don't, is deeply unsettling. Let's break this down and figure out what might be going on, while keeping the creepy vibe intact. First, the recorder itself. Hidden behind a loose brick suggests someone deliberately stashed it, maybe to keep it safe, maybe to hide it from you or your parents. The first tape being dated the day you went missing for 3 hours, when you were 7, an age where memories can be fuzzy, feels significant. Your parents' silence on the incident adds another layer. Either they didn't know what happened or they chose not to tell you. The voice knowing things you don't, though. That's where it gets weird. It could point to a few possibilities, each creepier than the last. One option, the voice belongs to someone, or something, connected to that missing time. Maybe you weren't alone during those 3 hours. The voice could be a person who was with you, someone who saw or experienced something you've forgotten or suppressed. Kids' brains sometimes block out trauma, so it's possible your 7-year-old self buried the memory, but this voice didn't. The fact that it remembers things you don't could mean it's tied to an event you've lost, maybe something your parents didn't want you to revisit. Another possibility? The voice isn't human. I'm not saying it's a ghost or demon outright, but the way it knows things you don't could hint at something that latched onto you during those missing hours. Maybe the recorder captured something that was, let's say, watching you? The tapes might be its way of communicating or even taunting across time. If the voice describes things you've never told anyone or events you can't recall, that's a red flag. It's not just your imagination, or it could be psychological. Maybe the voice is yours, but from a part of your mind you don't recognize, like a dissociated memory or a coping mechanism from whatever happened. Kids under stress can fragment their experiences, and hearing yourself speak in a way that feels alien could be your brain's way of processing something buried. The recorder might have been hidden by you or someone close to preserve those memories until you were ready. Here's what you could do to dig deeper, if you're up for it. Listen to the tapes fully. Note what the voice says, especially details about those 3 hours or things you don't remember. Does it mention places, people, or feelings? Any clues about where you were or who was around? If it's not your voice, does it sound like someone you know or something trying to mimic you? Check the recorder and tapes. How old is the device? Is it something your family owned back then, or does it feel out of place? Look for labels, dates, or other recordings. If the tapes are numbered or organized, that might show someone was methodical about hiding them. Talk to your parents, carefully. If they're still around, bring up the missing 3 hours indirectly. Like, hey, remember that time I wandered off as a kid? Gauge their reaction. If they shut down or get weird, that's a clue they know more than they've said. Search the house. That loose brick might not be the only hiding spot. Check other places in your childhood home for more tapes, notes, or objects tied to that day. Basements, attics, or old furniture could hold answers. Document everything. Write down what the voice says, when the tapes were recorded, and any memories they stir. If the voice knows things you don't, cross-check those details. Maybe look up old news, ask childhood friends, or revisit places it mentions. The air in my childhood bedroom felt heavier as I clutched the voice recorder, its cold plastic casing biting into my palm. The last tape had just clicked to a stop, the voice, low, deliberate, and not mine, fading into a hiss of static. It had said, "You left your red shoe by the creek. It's still there under the roots." I hadn't worn red shoes since I was a kid, and I had no memory of a creek. But the words crawled under my skin because I knew there was a creek, half a mile from the house, hidden by a tangle of oaks. I'd never gone there. Or had I? I glanced at the clock, 11:19 p.m. The house was silent except for the faint creak of old wood settling. My parents were long gone, the house left to me after they passed, and I'd only come back to clear it out for sale. Finding the recorder behind the loose brick in the fireplace had been a fluke, a distraction from boxing up their lives. Now I couldn't stop. There were 5 tapes in total, each labeled with a date in my mom's neat handwriting. The first was from that day I went missing, July 12, 1997. The others were spaced out over the next year. The final one dated my 8th birthday. I'd only listened to the first 2 so far, and already I felt like I was unraveling. The second tape had been worse than the first. The voice described me sitting in a circle of stones, humming a tune I didn't recognize. It said, "You promised to come back, but you didn't. They're still waiting." The way it said they made my stomach twist. Who were they? And why did the voice sound so familiar, yet wrong? It wasn't just the timbre. It was the way it lingered on certain words, like it was savoring them, like it knew me better than I knew myself. I set the recorder on my old desk. its surface still scarred from crayon scribbles, and stared at the remaining tapes. Part of me wanted to smash them, to never hear that voice again. But the red shoe, the creek, I couldn't shake it. I grabbed my phone and searched "creek near my hometown 1997. Nothing specific came up, just a local park with a stream running through it. The oaks matched the description, though. I hesitated, then typed, "Missing child, hometown, 1997. A few articles mentioned me, a brief blurb about a 7-year-old found safe after wandering off. No details about where I'd been or what I'd said. My parents had told police I was confused and didn't remember. I'd always accepted that. Now I wasn't so sure. I picked up the third tape, dated September 3rd, 1997, and slid it into the recorder. My finger hovered over the play button. The house felt too quiet, like it was holding its breath. I pressed play, .click, static, then the voice. "You're not listening, are you? You keep forgetting. That's why I'm here." A pause, followed by a soft chuckle that made my hair stand on end. "The creek wasn't the first time. You went to the circle before when the moon was full. You brought the shiny thing from your mom's drawer. They liked it. They want it back." I stopped the tape, my heart pounding. The shiny thing hit me like a punch. When I was 6, I'd stolen a silver locket from my mom's jewelry box, a heart-shaped thing with a photo of her and Dad inside. She'd been furious when it went missing, and I'd lied, saying I didn't know where it was. I'd forgotten about it until now, but I never took it to any creek. At least I didn't think I did. I stood, pacing the room. The voice was messing with me, digging up things I'd buried. Or maybe I was the one who'd hidden the recorder, sleepwalking through some childhood trauma, talking to myself in a voice I didn't recognize. But that didn't explain the brick, or my mom's handwriting on the tapes. She'd known about this. She'd hidden it. I grabbed a flashlight and my jacket. It was crazy, but I had to know. The creek wasn't far, and the red shoe, if it was there, might prove something. I tucked the recorder and tapes into a backpack, just in case, and slipped out the back door. The night was crisp, the moon a thin sickle overhead. The path to the park was overgrown, but I remembered it from bike rides as a kid. My flashlight beam danced across the trees, catching glints of frost. The creek appeared sooner than I expected, its gurgle faint under the rustle of leaves. I scanned the banks, looking for oak roots. There, near a bend, a gnarled tree leaned over the water, its roots clawing into the mud. I knelt, heart racing, and aimed the light. Something red peeked out, wedged between dirt and wood. I reached in, fingers brushing something soft and rotted. I pulled it free. A child's sneaker, red canvas faded to pink, laces frayed. My size from when I was 7. I dropped it, scrambling back. The voice was right. The shoe was here. But how? I hadn't been to this creek in decades, if ever. My breath fogged in the air as I stared at the shoe, half expecting it to move. Then I noticed something else, a faint outline in the mud, a few feet away. A circle of flat stones, barely visible under years of leaves. I approached, my flashlight shaking. The stones were arranged deliberately, about 3 feet across, like a crude fire pit. In the center, something glinted. I brushed the leaves aside and froze. A silver locket, heart-shaped, tarnished but intact. My mom's locket. The air shifted, like a door had opened somewhere I couldn't hear. A whisper came from nowhere and everywhere, in that same voice from the tapes. "You came back." I spun around, flashlight slashing through the dark. No one was there. Just the creek, the trees, and the circle of stones. My pulse roared in my ears, but I couldn't run. I wouldn't. Whatever this was, it had been waiting since I was 7. I pulled the recorder from my backpack, hands trembling, and set it on a stone. I pressed record. "Who are you?" I said, my voice barely steady. "What do you want?" The recorder hummed softly. The wind had stopped, and the creek seemed quieter now, like the world was listening. I waited, staring at the dark, the locket glinting in my hand. Then, from the recorder came a faint click. The tape was moving, but I hadn't touched it. The recorder's hum grew louder, a mechanical heartbeat in the still night. My eyes darted between the device and the circle of stones, the silver locket heavy in my hand. The air felt thick, like it was pressing against my skin, and the faint gurgle of the creek had all but vanished. The tape spun slowly, its reels catching the moonlight. I hadn't touched it. My question, "Who are you? What do you want?" hung unanswered in the dark. Or so I thought. A crackle broke the silence, sharp and sudden, like a bone snapping. The recorder's speaker hissed, and then the voice came through, low and deliberate, the same one from the tapes, but now live, as if it were standing right beside me. "You brought it back," it said, each word curling like smoke. "The shiny thing. They're pleased." I stumbled back, nearly tripping over a root. My flashlight beam swung wildly, catching only trees and shadows. "Who's they?" I shouted, my voice cracking. "What the hell is this?" The recorder clicked again, and the voice answered, closer now, like it was speaking directly into my ear. "You promised them back then. You don't remember, but they do. They've been waiting under the stones." My stomach lurched. I looked down at the circle, the flat stones glinting faintly under my light. They looked ordinary, weathered by time, but the way the voice said under made my skin crawl. I tightened my grip on the locket, its edges biting into my palm. "I was 7, I said, more to myself than the recorder. "I didn't promise anything." The tape spun faster, the hum rising to a whine. "You did," the voice said, sharper now, almost accusing. "You took their gift. You wore it. You left the shoe to mark the way back, but you forgot." A pause, then a softer tone, almost pitying. "They don't forget." I froze. Their gift. My mind flashed to a faint memory, more feeling than image, a weight around my neck, heavier than the locket, something cold and smooth. I'd always thought it was a dream, a fragment of childhood imagination. But now, standing in this circle, the locket in my hand and the red shoe rotting by the creek, it felt real. Too real. I knelt by the stones, heart pounding, and brushed more leaves away. The circle was perfect, unnaturally so. Each stone fitted like a puzzle piece. In the center, where I'd found the locket, the dirt was loose, darker than the rest. My fingers hesitated, then dug into the soil. It was cold, unnaturally cold, and my nails scraped something hard. I pulled it free, a small, smooth object, no bigger than a walnut, carved from what looked like bone. It was shaped like a crescent moon, with tiny, intricate etchings that seemed to shift under my flashlight's beam. The recorder crackled again. "You found it," the voice said, almost gleeful. "Their mark. You're theirs now." I dropped the bone crescent, my breath coming in short gasps. "No," I said, backing away from the circle. "I'm not part of this. I was a kid. I didn't know." The ground trembled, just enough to make me stumble. The stones seemed to sink slightly, as if the earth beneath them was breathing. The recorder's tape spun wildly now, the reels a blur. The voice laughed, a low, guttural sound that didn't belong to anything human. "You knew," it said. "You danced in their circle. You took their gift. You left the shoe to find them again. And now you're here." I grabbed the recorder, desperate to shut it off, but the buttons wouldn't respond. The tape kept spinning, the voice growing louder, overlapping itself. "They're coming! They're coming! They're coming!" The words echoed, not just from the recorder, but from the trees, the creek, the air itself. My flashlight flickered, then died, plunging me into darkness, except for the faint glow of the moon. I turned to run, but my legs felt heavy, like I was wading through mud. The locket in my hand grew warm, almost burning, and I dropped it into the circle. The moment it hit the ground, the trembling stopped. The recorder went silent. The air was still again, but it wasn't a relief. It was worse. It was the kind of silence that comes before a storm. Then I saw them. Shapes at the edge of the trees just beyond the moonlight's reach. They were tall, too tall. Their outlines wrong, limbs too long, heads tilted at angles that made my eyes ache. They didn't move, but I felt their attention, like a weight pressing on my chest. The bone crescent in the circle began to glow faintly, its etchings pulsing like a heartbeat. I backed away, my sneakers crunching on the leaves. The shapes didn't follow, but I could feel them watching, waiting. The voice didn't speak again, but I didn't need it to. I knew what it wanted. I'd been marked somehow all those years ago, during those missing 3 hours. The red shoe, the locket, the bone crescent. They were pieces of a promise I didn't remember making. I ran, my breath ragged, the recorder still clutched in my hand. The creek faded behind me as I tore through the park, branches snagging at my jacket. When I reached the house, I slammed the door shut and locked it, as if that could keep them out. My backpack hit the floor, the remaining tapes spilling across the hardwood. I stared at them, my chest heaving. 2 tapes left, one dated December 1997, the other, my 8th birthday. The house felt like a trap now, its familiar walls closing in as I stared at the 2 remaining tapes scattered on the floor. My hands shook, slick with sweat, the recorder still clutched tightly, as if letting it go would unleash whatever was waiting outside. The bone crescent, the locket, the red shoe. They were anchors tying me to that circle of stones, to those things I'd seen in the trees. My childhood home, once a place of comfort, now hummed with a wrongness I couldn't shake. The voice had said I was theirs. I didn't know what that meant, but I knew I couldn't run from it anymore. Not with 2 tapes left, whispering answers I wasn't sure I wanted. I sank onto the floor, the hardwood cold against my legs, and picked up the tape dated December 1997. My mom's handwriting was shakier on this one, the ink smudged like she'd been in a hurry. I slid it into the recorder, my finger hesitating over the play button. The silence in the house was oppressive, broken only by the faint ticking of a clock in the hall. I pressed play, click, static. Then the voice, softer this time, almost coaxing. "You're scared," it said. "You were scared then, too, when you came back to the circle. You brought the locket again, but you didn't stay. You ran home. You told her." A pause, heavy with accusation. "She didn't believe you." My breath caught. I remembered fragments now, running through the dark, my mom's face pale as I babbled about stones and shadows. She'd hugged me, told me it was a nightmare, but her eyes had been too wide, her grip too tight. The voice continued. "She hid the locket. She hid us. But you kept the crescent. You kept it under your pillow. You wanted to come back." I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. I didn't remember any crescent, but the image felt right, like a puzzle piece snapping into place. The voice grew sharper. "They gave you their mark because you asked for it. You wanted to see. And now you're here again. Finish it." The tape stopped. My hands trembled as I reached for the final tape. My 8th birthday, July 12, 1998. The day felt significant. Not just because it was a year after I went missing, but because I remembered that birthday. A small cake, my parents' forced smiles, a strange heaviness in the air. I'd thought it was just me, a kid's imagination. Now I wasn't sure. I inserted the tape and pressed play. The voice came immediately, no static this time, clear and cold. "Happy birthday," it said, mocking. "You're 8 now, old enough to keep promises. They're waiting at the creek. You know where. Bring the crescent. Bring the locket. Or they'll come for you." The tape ended with a sharp snap and the recorder powered off, its battery dead. I sat frozen, the words echoing in my skull. They'll come for you. I looked toward the window, half expecting to see those 2 tall shapes in the yard, their wrong-angled heads watching. The house was still, but the silence felt alive, like it was waiting for me to move. I stood, my legs unsteady, and grabbed the backpack. The locket was still at the creek, dropped in the circle when I'd run. The bone crescent was there too, glowing in my memory like a beacon. I didn't want to go back, but the voice was right. I'd been running from this since I was 7. Whatever I'd done in those missing hours, whatever promise I'd made, it was mine to face. I stepped outside. The night colder now, the sickle moon brighter. The path to the creek felt shorter this time, like the forest was pulling me in. When I reached the circle of stones, the locket and crescent were exactly where I'd left them, glowing faintly, the etchings on the crescent pulsing in rhythm with my heartbeat. The shapes were there too, just beyond the trees, silent but closer now, their outlines sharper. I could almost see their faces, featureless, yet somehow watching. I knelt in the circle, the recorder useless in my hand. "I don't remember," I whispered, my voice breaking. "I don't know what I promised." The air shifted, heavy and warm, like a breath. The shapes stepped forward, not walking, but gliding, their forms bending the moonlight. They stopped at the edge of the circle, and a sound filled my head. Not the voice from the tapes, but something older, deeper, a chorus of whispers that weren't words, but feelings, curiosity, hunger, patience. I picked up the crescent and locket, their warmth searing my skin. The whispers grew louder, urging me to remember. And then, like a dam breaking, I did. I was 7, standing in this circle, the locket in my hand. The shapes were there, not scary then, but fascinating, offering me the bone crescent. They'd shown me things, stars that moved, a sky that sang, a world just beyond this one. I'd wanted to stay, to see more. I'd promised to come back, to bring the locket again, to wear their mark forever. But I'd run, scared by their strangeness, and my mom had locked the locket away. She'd found the crescent under my pillow and buried it here, thinking it would end. She'd hidden the tapes, maybe to protect me, maybe to forget. "I was a kid," I said to the shapes, tears streaming down my face. "I didn't understand." The whispers softened, almost gentle. They didn't care about my excuses. They'd waited, and I was here. I looked at the crescent, its etchings now clear, symbols that felt like a language I'd once known. I could give it back, step out of the circle, and hope they'd let me go. Or I could keep it, step into their world and see what I'd seen at 7. I closed my eyes, the weight of the choice crushing me. The shapes leaned closer, their presence a pull I couldn't fight. I slipped the crescent into my pocket and placed the locket in the center of the circle. "I'm done," I said, voice steady now. Take it back. The ground shook, the stones sinking into the earth. The locket vanished, swallowed by the dirt. The shapes flickered, their forms dissolving into the moonlight, and the whispers faded to silence. The creek burbled again, the night air cold and ordinary. I walked back to the house, the crescent still in my pocket, heavy as a secret. I didn't know if I'd broken the promise or just delayed it. The recorder sat on my